Welcome to the Daybreak with Jeff Slakey podcast. I'm so happy you found us. Please subscribe, rate, review, and share this with your circle of influence. It's a collection of the interviews, news, and conversation during Daybreak with Jeff Slakey on iFiber One News Radio, KMAS, weekdays from 6 to 9.
Hey, good morning to you. Thursday here, the 27th of August. Jeff Slakey, Spencer Hughes. Good morning, Spencer.
Hey, good morning to you. How's it going?
Doing well, thank you. Hope you're doing well as well. Today on the show, local news and conversation. Shelton Police Chief Darrin Moody during our Focus on Shelton, presented by our Community Credit Union, and more. Since our last report yesterday, Mason County Public Health notified of 3 additional Mason County residents that have tested positive for COVID-19. This brings the total to 324 positive cases in Mason County. Public Health continuing contact interviews.
Washington Secretary of State Kim Wyman has issued an emergency rule change that requires county officials to use first-class mail at least 15 days before Election Day when sending ballots to voters in October. By law, ballots must be sent to voters no later than October 16th, with the initial mailing sent at a nonprofit bulk rate, which guarantees a delivery time between 3 and 10 days. Under the new rule, at least 15 days prior to the election, any replacement ballots or ballots for newly registered voters would be mailed with first-class postage with a delivery window between 2 and 5 days.
And again, on this with the mail-in voting, if you are uncomfortable mailing your ballot back in, although Mason County and our state has had a long track record of mail-in voting, you can drop it off in one of the secure ballot drop boxes that are all around the county, and they're all around the state, really. I mean, you have those ballot drop-off boxes, and they make it very convenient for folks. There's a lot of easy locations to drop those off.
Absolutely, and usually plenty of parking in front of them, which I've noticed, so it's not like you're having to double park or, go around the block a few times. There's usually some spaces right in front for you.
Yeah, just jump out, drop it off, jump back in. A reminder, Mason County, there is a restriction on outdoor burning to all lands regulated by the county. This burn restriction applies to outdoor burning, including land clearing and yard debris, and includes prohibitions on recreational fires. The use of charcoal briquettes, gas and propane barbecues will, though, continue to be allowed under the ban. Now, Spencer, I brought up this next story here because this week the Shelton School District did vote to adopt their budget, which included some cuts to staff there, and this is tragic, of course, to the folks who are losing their positions, but it is happening all across the state and all across the country. Here's one from down in Vancouver, and listen to these numbers. Southwest Washington School District furloughing nearly 500 employees for the new school year, which begins online next week. The Evergreen Public Schools in Vancouver informed the 475 workers in the Public School Employees Union they may be called back later in September if students start returning to the school building. There are 1,115 employees in the union, and then again, that number being furloughed was 475, so almost half of those folks. The furloughed employees previously worked directly with students on campus as support staff, but they won't be needed as the district goes to remote learning because of the coronavirus pandemic. And again, this is just happening all over the place, and it's a really tough situation.
Oh, it really is. That's a lot of people, a lot of families being affected. And again, nobody likes what's going on here. This isn't something any of us planned for, anybody would ever look forward to. It's something we've never really had to face, and tough decisions are being made. 3 Major League Baseball games were postponed Wednesday as players across the sports landscape reacted in the wake of the weekend shooting by police of Jacob Blake, a black man in Wisconsin. Games between the Cincinnati Reds and Brewers in Milwaukee, Seattle Mariners and Padres in San Diego, and the Los Angeles Dodgers and Giants in San Francisco were called off hours before they were set to begin. Other MLB games had finished, were in progress, or just about to start as the announcements were made. The postponements came after the NBA's Milwaukee Bucks didn't come out on the floor for Game 5 of their first-round playoff series with the Orlando Magic. NBA officials later announced that all 3 of the day's scheduled playoff games had been postponed.
Yeah, we had that Mariners game scheduled for last night, but it was postponed and delayed to today, where both teams will be playing in a doubleheader with coverage beginning today at 11 and then baseball throughout the day. So that's what's going on there. If you're looking for a great outdoor activity now through the weekend, the waterfront sculptures on Percival Landing in downtown Olympia may be an option for you. Each year, the Percival Plinth Project hosts a new group of sculptures on the landing. A community vote is held. You can help choose the People Choice winner for 2020 by voting now through the end of this month, and just kind of keep your eyes out there, social distancing and stuff. Stephanie and I did this the other day. We walked, Kaiser spent the night at the grandparents, and so we went downtown and did this and walked and looked at these things. And there's some really nice ones. And that's a fun walk along the waterfront there in downtown Olympia, next to the restaurants and Percival Landing.
That's always a pleasant area down there.
Again, today on the show, Shelton Police Chief Darrin Moody talks about his recent decision for retirement at the end of the year, and that's during our Focus on Shelton presented by Our Community Credit Union. More Daybreak coming up.
From the iFiber One News Radio studios, you're listening to Daybreak.
Well, good morning, everybody. Jeff Slakey and Spencer Hughes on the Daybreak Show. It's time for us to Focus on Shelton, presented by our great friends at Our Community Credit Union. Shelton Police Chief Darrin Moody in studio. Hello, sir.
Good morning, Jeff.
So last week we heard the news that you put in for your retirement. And
Yes.
It wasn't a shock, I don't think, to anybody who knows you or follows along with the council meetings and things like that. You've been kind of looking that this may be time to wrap things up.
Yeah, and it's been fun. And when I got here, they asked how long I was going to stay, and I said 5 years.
Okay.
And I said, the one thing I've learned after many years is you never know what life holds. And so 5 years came and went, and now it's fast approaching 6.
Yeah.
And we have family up here now, and family we're taking care of and helping out with. And my wife and I discussed it and said, you know what? We made the changes I needed to make, and we've come a long way as a department, and I'd like to leave it in a good spot for the next person.
33 years in any industry or any job is a very long time. And I would think that the last 33 years in law enforcement, you've seen a lot of changes.
Yes, and probably in the last 2 to 3 years more than ever.
Right.
In fact, we had a staff meeting that I announced to staff what was going to occur at the council meeting, and I said, way back in 1987, I started in law enforcement, guys. I said, raise your hand if you were born after 1980. And literally a half dozen of our staff raised their hand and said, I wasn't born yet. So, it's a good young crew. They'll do some wonderful things. So
We talked 2 weeks ago about a little bit of restructuring in the police department. Not so much maybe a chief position, but 2 lieutenants. Is that how it is? How's that going to
it actually is a wonderful thing. The structure is in place now. Like I've said before, the things that keep the chief up at night are the graveyard shift that's out there, the supervision that's out there. And now we have a group of experienced supervisors in place. And so we work 12-hour shifts. So there's one side of the week that's covered by this shift, another covered by this at the other end of the week. And it was spreading the captain position pretty thin because in addition to all the administrative duties that come with it, trying to pay attention to what's going on patrol at the sergeant level. And so the restructuring was taking the captain's position and making it a lieutenant position. And then promoting a sergeant to that lieutenant position. So now we have 2, and they cover both ends of the week. So we have more supervision than we've ever had in the police department. Or I shouldn't say ever had. In the last 6 years I've been here. I am very comfortable with the supervision we have in place now. So
I saw on social media over the weekend some pretty positive posts about your time here in the 6 years that you spent time here, and moving the police department forward in new visionings. There's the new logos that everybody worked on together, the new color scheme on things, and there's a good you're leaving. It seems like you're leaving the department in a good place. Are you where you were hoping it would be when you took the job and you said 5 years and now we're at 6?
We had certain visions for the department. I say we, the original staff that's still there. I remember meeting with them originally, and they said, "What do you want to see, Chief?" And we talked at length about it. And I said I wanted to see a well-respected department throughout the state. I wanted to see officers that were professional. And last year we received accreditation for the first time in history.
Yeah.
And so, some of that vision came true. Most of it did. I will say this, the hard part is there is some people who are going to tell me good riddance.
Sure.
And go on about your way and get out of town. But I didn't expect the guilt feeling that I had.
Yeah.
When I told staff and as you well know, there's always going to be staff that are going, another chief. But it was the support from the staff of why now, why are you leaving us? The guilt hit. And then I had to realize after talking to my wife that I can't stay because I'm feeling guilty for other folks.
Yeah. I mean, your position puts you in the public, but there are plenty of police chiefs and there's plenty of heads of business who would not invest themselves as much into the community as I've seen you invest yourself into the community. I'm thinking specifically of 5-6 years ago, when you would come in with Jerry here and Dr. Apostle, and these are the first formings of Graduation Matters, and these are the first conversations of additional help to try to get a YMCA here. I mean, you've really put a good mark in this short amount of time here on not just policing in Shelton, but I mean, you could make the case that overall in the county, it's benefited.
And I said from day one, the police are the community.
Yeah.
And if we're not accepted in the community, then we need to get accepted and figure out how to do it and be part of that. And like you said, it's an investment. It's an investment in the community. And I think the investment overall has paid off. We have a good relationship with the other law enforcement agencies in the county and the other agencies that are not law enforcement in the county, which is even bigger.
Yeah.
You announced, this is sponsored by OCCU today. One of our biggest proponents has been OCCU. Bert and his crew over there have been overwhelmingly supportive of the police department during my tenure, as have Peninsula Credit Union, SPI, the Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of support from folks in this community, which has been great to see.
So, I mean, you're not done. It's not like this is your exit interview. You're going to be here through the end of the year to help find a replacement. And I'm sure that's going to be a very difficult.
And Jeff had asked a few months ago, give me 6 months. Before you call it a day, let me know 6 months ahead of time so I can plan for things. Because, as you well know, when I went through the process, it was about 6 years ago in August that we were interviewing.
Yeah.
Because there will be a interview process. The community will be involved with it. There will be a polygraph, a psychological exam, a background exam that'll go on. When I remember having a background investigator call me down in California and say, I'm on my way, I'm getting on a plane, I'm going to come down there and talk to you, neighbors, family, friends, work. So it's a lengthy process, and it can take 3 or 4 months before you get somebody ready to go.
And you don't have to answer this if you don't want to. Would you like to see it be someone internal who understands the current workings of how the culture is at Shelton, or is it important to have somebody with experience at a more populous city to come in, or a less populous city? Or
it's a difficult question. I would love to see somebody from internal eventually become the chief here, but the reality behind that is this is an at-will position. There is no protection for my job.
Sure.
If tomorrow the city council comes to the city manager and says, we're done, chief needs to go, he goes. I've been lucky enough to be in a position where I can draw retirement. But when you have lieutenants that are 40 years old, it's not common for a chief to do more than, average used to be, they'd say 3 years.
Huh.
3 to 5 years. There are chiefs out there that have done 15 or 20 as chief. But if you take the overall average, 3 to 5 years is a pretty good tenure as a chief.
Wow.
And so to put that on a 40-year-old who cannot retire, And then in 5 years, a new council, new city manager comes in and they change the flavor.
Sure.
You know, it's a daunting task for young folks to do, which is unfortunate because, you know, there's a lot of mentoring that goes on. There's a lot of teaching that goes on. And we've put these guys in place and given them the tools to be successful at it. But it's not for everybody, you know. I reflected back on it just last week and I was thinking, I didn't even want to be a sergeant. I was happy. I had a dog in my car. I was traveling around doing patrol. I thought, what better job to have in the world? Why do I want to be a supervisor? You know, after doing it about 13 years, people told me, you need to test for sergeant. Why would I want to do that? And they said, because, you know, you look at the people that are going to promote if you don't. And we want to work with you.
Yeah.
And I took the sergeant's job and thought, all right, this is cool. I could do this. I don't want to be a lieutenant. I don't want to be a captain. I don't want to be a chief. You know, it wasn't that aspiration until way later in life. So,
Well, I know you've put a good mark in on the community, and you'll be in and around here over the next couple of months, I know, because we'll have things to talk about. But right now, just kind of a good reflection on the time spent here as the police chief as we move forward and look ahead to the new chapter.
hey, you know, in a few months, I'll come in as the retired guy on the street, come in and have a conversation.
Man on the street, for sure. Our Focus on Shelton this week and every week is brought to you by our great friends and big supporters of the Shelton Police Department, our community credit union. Thanks, Darrin.
You bet.
You're listening to Daybreak on iFiber One News Radio.
And again, good morning to you here on the Daybreak Show, Thursday the 27th. Morning, Spencer.
Hey, good morning. What's going on?
1883, the volcanic island of Krakatoa blew up. Now, this is fascinating, and thank goodness we haven't seen an eruption of this magnitude since 1883. The blast sent 5 cubic miles of earth, dirt, 34 miles into the atmosphere.
Wow.
With an explosion so deafening, it could be heard over 1/10 of the surface of the planet.
Wow. That's incredible.
So you are hundreds, if not maybe thousands of miles away from this thing, and you hear something and are not sure what's going on. 120-foot tidal wave.
Ugh.
It claimed 36,000 lives in 163 villages in Java and Sumatra. So again, too, this is 1883. So imagine how much unknown there was just after all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we think to ourselves today, we take for granted social media and Twitter and radio stations like this one, informing people, and even seismic, activity leading up to a volcanic eruption. When we were at Rainier the other day, we were thinking, gosh, what if that thing blew up, while we're sitting here looking at it? And then I thought, well, no, it's not going to probably do that. It's probably going to, rumble for a long time. And there'll be plenty of time before they shut it down and say, okay, it could erupt any day now. But back then, they didn't have that kind of notice.
No, they don't know. And again, this is in Sumatra, Java, not a very, obviously 36,000 lives, but compared to major metropolis, I'm sure it took weeks, if not months, to get people there to look at this thing. And then start to get the Western Unions or the telegrams going out around the world. Yeah,
just unbelievable loss of life. And can you imagine 120-foot tidal waves? I mean, that's the thing of these natural disaster movies with special effects you see. I mean, to even envision that is just gives me goosebumps just thinking about it.
Well, I was watching the news yesterday because of the Hurricane Laura down in Galveston.
Yes.
And so there was a weather guy on the scene. He was on the beach or something. And he says, okay, think about this. Where you're standing on the beach, where the sand meets the surf, the storm surge is bringing in waves that are 20 feet above where I'm standing.
Oh, man. Terrifying.
So that's four times as tall as me. And that's a 20-foot storm surge. These were 120 foot.
It's incredible. And again, one of those things, obviously, where with today's technology, we'd have all sorts of footage of it, and it would be on YouTube for generations to come to see. But this is just something that was must have been so awful and terrifying to those people in those villages.
Some other things happening on this day. Gracie Allen, George Burns' other half, passing away at 58, 1964. Of course, George and Gracie, just hilarious.
Oh, yeah. Good night, Gracie. Say good night, Gracie. Good night, Gracie. Those
Good night, Gracie.
Those are famous tagline. I love George Burns. I remember when I was growing up, I knew him as God because the old God movies were there. And I think the 70s, maybe into the 80s. I'm dating myself here. But that was my first exposure.
I used to watch those.
That was my first exposure.
Oh, God.
Oh, yeah.
God, too. Oh, God, you devil.
Remember John
They had
Denver?
a whole Uh-huh. That's funny. Yeah, he was in some classics. Those are just some of the things that happened on the day. As we look musically, though, imagine this being a fly on the wall here. 1965, when the Beatles met Elvis in Beverly Hills, that had to have been amazing.
That is pretty cool. I didn't even know that I guess they would have had to have met him, but I didn't know that even took place. I didn't know about that.
Sure. And then this musician, I absolutely love listening to his music, and I always put him older than he was when he died. I'm talking about Stevie Ray Vaughan. It was just 1990 when Stevie Ray Vaughan was killed when his helicopter crashed in Wisconsin. He, just 35 at the time, on a way back from a concert with Eric Clapton and Robert Cray. So, I mean, an amazing blues guitar musician. But I always think of him as more of a 70s guy or like an early 80s kind of a guy.
Yeah, I do too. It's funny. I get the genre, the years rather, mixed up that he actually was big, but one of the great guitarists, man. What a talent.
That Austin City Limits, Stevie Ray Vaughan, and Double Trouble, the One Night in Texas, it was 2 performances. So they filmed in 83, and then in 1989, both of those performances are amazing because he's playing Pride and Joy, he's doing Texas Flood, and he just kills on that guitar. Oh my gosh, he's good.
Oh yeah, I used to use his music for my earliest shows I ever did for bumper music when I could pick my own bumper music. I always, probably 20% of the music was Stevie Ray Vaughan alone, and just great, long instrumental riffs too. That's what I loved about it, is he didn't just break into the song. There was a lot of instrumental leading up to it.
Now, taking a look at some other things here, birthday-wise as well. There's not a lot going on birthday-wise. Pee Wee Herman, 68.
Wow.
I think Kaiser and I have watched Pee Wee's Big Adventure. I think, or at least the old TV shows. We've watched some of those. I don't know if he's seen Pee Wee's Big Adventure or Big Top Pee Wee. Those two are great.
Bobo is 51, but not the Bobo of Finding Bigfoot. Bobo of Cypress Hill. The percussionist for Cypress Hill is 51.
I love Cypress Hill. Big fan. Big fan. Insane in the membrane. Let's see, who else here? Dr. Bailey on Grey's Anatomy. Chandra Wilson is 51. I bring it up because they stopped filming the most recent season of Grey's Anatomy because of COVID. But I think they're either back to filming or getting back to filming. And they are going to address coronavirus.
Oh, really?
You know, the Seattle area was one of the first known, or the first known case in the state, in the country. So there's a lot of, hometown news that they can pull off.
Oh, sure.
From.
No, that's absolutely
That's
true.
pretty cool. Yeah. Well, some good stuff today. If you're having a birthday, big happy birthday to you, and some cool things to think about on this day in history as more Daybreak comes up.
I-Fiber One News Radio, 1030 KMAS and FM 103.3 presents Daybreak.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Jeff Slakey, Spencer Hughes, continuing on here on the Daybreak Show. Morning, Spence.
Hey, good morning to you.
All right, I'm gonna try something here. I want you to tell me. I'm gonna make a noise, and I want you to tell me if the noise sounds familiar to you.
Okay.
All right, you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Do you want me to do it again?
I think I know. Go ahead. I want to hear it again, though. So
all right.
even if I know it, do it again.
Let's see. How was that?
That was good.
Tell me what you think that was.
I thought it was Scooby-Doo at first. When I first heard it, like, what?
No.
No?
Let me try another one.
Okay.
Let me see if I can figure out another way that this person did this.
Okay, yes, of course. Home Improvement.
Tim the Toolman Taylor.
Yep. That was one of my favorite shows
So
of the 90s.
here is... That was a great show. Richard Karn was his sidekick, and he's from Washington, the great state.
I didn't know that.
And he's a heck of a game show host in his own right. He did. He's hosted many shows. Anyways, it's not this. That is a great one. So 20 years since Home Improvement went off the air, but Tim Allen and Richard Karn are bringing back, in a way, that hit TV show Tool Time. It's an all-new building competition series on the History Channel called Assembly Required, and it's going to run for 10 episodes next year. It's going to spotlight the best and brightest builders from across the country at their home workshops as they compete to breathe new life into everyday household items in desperate need of fixing.
Oh, I love those shows.
How about that one?
That'll be fun.
So Tim Allen is tapped not only to star in the series, but serve as its executive producer. Karn will be the host, and it's set to launch next year.
Wow, that's really cool.
That was such a good show.
1991 to 1999. I didn't realize that it was nominated and won so many Emmys. It was nominated for 34, but it actually won 7. But that's still fantastic. Yeah. Wow.
That's amazing to think of that show on for almost a whole decade in the 90s. I mean, that is, and what was the neighbor you never saw? Wilson, was that who it was?
Wilson,
You never saw his full face.
Now, they showed it at the end, right? The last episode, didn't they? And I was hoping they wouldn't, but I think they did. Yeah.
Or they teased that they were going to.
I'll have to look on YouTube for that one.
Pamela Anderson was one of the first Tool Time gals.
That's right. There were a few.
And then another one. Yeah. That was a show. That was a good one. That'll be fun. Assembly Required, coming next year on the History Channel with Tim Allen and Richard Karn. Well, good morning to you. Hope you're having a good start to the day. We'll be back with more Daybreak after this. Thank you so much for listening to today's Daybreak with Jeff Slakey podcast. Again, I'm so happy and honored you found us and chose to listen. Please subscribe, rate, review, and share this with your circle of influence. It's a collection of some of the interviews, news, and conversation during Daybreak with Jeff Slakey on I-Fiber One News Radio KMAS, weekdays from 6 to 9. Thank you so much again, and talk with you next time.